The wait is finally over. Season 2 of 1923 has officially wrapped, bringing the curtain down on another unforgettable chapter in the sprawling Yellowstone saga. But if you think this is where the story finds its peace, you haven't been paying attention. What started as an epic tale of survival, ambition, and sacrifice has now reached a fever pitch, stretching across continents and generations. Yet the story is far from finished. With every loss and every hard-won victory, the Dutton legacy has only grown more tangled, more perilous, and more compelling to watch. Season 2 didn't just conclude. It shattered, leaving a minefield of questions, fan theories, and chilling possibilities in its wake. Is this the end of the line for the Duttons of this generation? Or is it just the calm before an even bigger storm? Are the ghosts of the past truly laid to rest? Or are they clawing their way back to the surface? The truth is complex, haunting, and more shocking than many of us were prepared for. And if you were watching closely during those final frantic moments of the finale, you might have caught the subtle clues pointing to what lies ahead. Because in this world, nothing is ever truly gone. So don't get comfortable. Settle in. We're about to dissect the finale's most stunning reveals, the future of the Yellowstone story, and every breadcrumb and hidden meaning you might have missed. Trust me, this is one conversation you'll want to be a part of. At the very end of 1923's second season, a storm of major developments hit the screen. And when I say a storm, I mean a relentless onslaught of plot points that felt like a runaway train. In a finale that barely clocked in at 2 hours, the show attempted to resolve nearly every major conflict across multiple continents. And frankly, it did so in the most chaotic, emotionally jarring way possible. Yes, it was filled with drama. Yes, the acting was phenomenal. Yes, my emotional state was a complete wreck by the end. But here's the hard truth. An emotional reaction is not the same as a well-written conclusion. We can't confuse a shocking payoff with satisfying closure. Let's be brutally honest for a moment. Did Spencer's long, agonizing journey back to Montana truly pay off? We were led to believe his return was the linchpin, the one thing that could save the ranch and secure the Dutton legacy. Instead, his grand, heroic moment was reduced to taking out a handful of hired guns and putting a bullet in Whitfield's head. Is that really the climax we spent 2 seasons building towards? Seriously, those thugs could have been handled by a few extra ranch hands, or just better perimeter security. As for Whitfield, Jacob Dutton could have dealt with that himself if the only solution was to storm into his house and open fire like it was still the wild frontier, which, to be fair, it mostly is in this universe. And we have to talk about how strangely convenient it all was. There was no legal blowback, no significant consequences, no internal struggle, just a quick burst of violence and justice is served. On to the next problem. Are we supposed to accept that so easily? Honestly, it felt like a profound disservice to the characters we have invested so much time in, especially Spencer's arc. After everything he went through, the shipwrecks, the exile, the crushing heartbreak, it's deeply frustrating to see his role diminish to that of a simple enforcer with very little narrative weight. Maybe I'm alone in this, but something about that resolution just felt hollow. It felt like the show was in a desperate sprint to the finish line and tripped over its own epic setup along the way. And if you felt that same unease as the credits began to roll, I promise you, you are not the only one. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not angry about the outcome. I always wanted Spencer to be the one to end Whitfield. I always wanted him to be the one to save his family's home. But let's be real, the path to that final episode should have been so much more meaningful than what we got. It should have been layered with conflict, emotionally grueling, and truly worthy of the agonizing anticipation we endured across 2 long seasons. The result didn't quite justify the emotional cost. And for a show that began with such fire and intensity, the landing felt rushed and surprisingly empty. The stakes were monumental, the sacrifices were enormous, but the destination wasn't nearly as fulfilling as the journey that got us there. Still, I need to know what you all thought. Was the ending everything you were hoping for, or did it leave you feeling as lost and adrift as Spencer once was in the middle of the ocean? Now, let's focus on what truly matters going forward. Spencer is alive. He's back on the ranch, more hardened and complex than we've ever seen him, and that fact alone blows the door wide open for more storytelling. Whether that comes in a rumored third season or a new prequel series, it's obvious Taylor Sheridan has more planned for him. The character's sheer will to survive could fuel another show entirely, but make no mistake, Spencer's journey is far from over, and unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be an incredibly lonely one. And now we have to address the heartbreak that is still a knot in all of our stomachs. Alexandra's fate. If I were to ask you to name the single most devastating, soul crushing part of the 1923 finale, I would bet my last dollar that the majority of you would say her name through gritted teeth. We watched her endure every imaginable trial, surviving storms, betrayals, illness, and constant danger. She loved with a fierce passion, fought with incredible bravery, and gave up everything she had. And it was all for nothing. To have her story end, not with a bang, but with a whisper of ambiguity, feels worse than death. Feels like an erasure. Alexandra deserved a better conclusion. So much better. She had all the makings of a quintessential Yellowstone woman. Fierce, resilient, and full of fire and grace. From the second she chose love over a life of privilege, we were hooked on her journey. She survived oceans, war, betrayal, and heartbreak. She fought for Spencer and for a life with him. And after everything she went through, this is how her story is left. Lost, possibly forever, without a definitive end, without justice. It didn't feel like a tragic twist. It felt like a betrayal, not just of her character, but of every single one of us who was rooting for her. And I was absolutely gutted. My jaw was on the floor. My heart sank. A part of my brain still refuses to accept it. Alexandra's exit wasn't tragic in a poetic, Shakespearean sense. It was tragic in a frustrating, careless, and emotionally cheap way. It felt like the writers just didn't know what to do with her, and that stings more than anything. It's becoming a pattern with Taylor Sheridan's historical prequels. If it takes place in the past, it must end in suffering, as if joy is an anachronism, as if hope is a privilege only available in the modern day. The past is just a graveyard of dreams. And if you're a character we've grown to love, well, good luck making it out with your soul in one piece. Look, I'm sure some of you will see it differently, and that's fine. I want to hear your perspective. Let's debate it in the comments, but for my money, I truly believe season 2 should have ended with Spencer and Alexandra finally setting foot on the ranch together. Can you even imagine that moment? The two of them finally building a life in Montana, side by side, raising the next generation of Duttons. It would have been a perfect full circle moment, a truly poetic payoff. Instead, we got uncertainty, a love story frozen in time, cut off mid-sentence. Now we're left with unresolved grief, disguised as a cliffhanger, and a finale that feels more like a system error than an ending. Worse, we're being asked to wait again for what? A third season, a vague spin-off, another emotional gut punch disguised in cowboy hats and sepia tones. And just when you thought the chaos couldn't escalate, they introduce a premature baby into the storyline. A fragile newborn without a mother, and Cara Dutton, a woman nearing 80, is now expected to raise him. Is that really where we're going? I swear it feels like the writers are testing our loyalty, daring us to see how much emotional turmoil we can handle. At this rate, it's not just a drama. It's a psychological endurance test. And honestly, we've earned better than this. Let's be practical. A baby born that prematurely surviving in the 1920s is a near impossibility. And asking a grieving great aunt like Cara to take on that burden feels insulting. The woman deserves some measure of peace. She deserves to rest. I had to suspend all disbelief just to process that entire sequence. Still, I can't deny there is one sliver of hope that intrigues me. Watching this child grow up in Spencer's shadow could be incredibly powerful. We know from the finale's narration that Spencer lives a long life, eventually dying in 1969. We also learn that he eventually has another child with a widowed woman, though he never remarries. And this is where the story gets morally complicated. Why make a point of telling us she was a widow? So why emphasize his refusal to marry her? Are we meant to see it as him staying loyal to Alexandra's memory while starting another family? Because that isn't romantic, it's tragic. If he couldn't move on, that's understandable. But to bring another woman and child into that unresolved grief isn't noble. It's a foundation of pain. That's why I have to believe there is more to this story, and we will likely see it unfold in 1944, the heavily rumored next chapter in the Yellowstone prequel saga. I think Sheridan knew this twist would be controversial, and that's precisely why he left a trail of breadcrumbs. We will meet this widow. We will come to understand Spencer's choices, and that baby. There's a popular theory that he is the key to understanding Jamie's story in the main Yellowstone series. Remember when Garrett Randall told Jamie the ranch was his birthright? What if that wasn't just a threat, but a piece of foreshadowing? We could be heading for a generational war between the acknowledged and unacknowledged heirs of the Dutton dynasty. And I'll be exploring all of that very soon in a video dedicated to the tangled and bloody roots of the Dutton family tree. So stay tuned. Now, while we are on the topic of character mistreatment, we need to discuss Jack and Elizabeth. After Spencer and Alexandra, they were the second most underdeveloped and sabotaged couple in the entire series. Jack's death felt like it was immediately swept under the rug by his own family. And Elizabeth, she gave her entire being to that family. She literally killed to protect that ranch. And what was her reward? To be treated with coldness and neglect, not even a simple hug from Kara. I was yelling at my television. You may not love Elizabeth's character, but you have to be fair. To be fair, that woman fought tooth and nail for her place. She bled for the Dutton name, she earned her stripes, and she was dismissed as if she were a passing acquaintance. At this point, I'm not just watching because I'm a fan. I'm watching because I need answers. I need closure. I want justice for the idea of Alexandra, for Elizabeth, and for all the characters whose stories have been left hanging in the balance. Sheridan had better be planning something phenomenal because, after everything we've been put through, we deserve a payoff that is worthy of the pain. Instead, Kara dismissed all of Elizabeth's sacrifices and treated her as if she were a liability. Yes, you could argue Kara was giving her an out permission to move on with her life after Jack's death. But her tone was so callous and detached that it was impossible not to feel heartbroken for Elizabeth. Kara basically suggested that Elizabeth would forget Jack and the ranch in a heartbeat and just go back to her old life. She completely ignored the physical scars Elizabeth carried, from the branding to the wolf attack, and the depth of her love for Jack. Kara treated Elizabeth like a naive girl, when in reality, she had become a hardened woman on that ranch, surviving things most people couldn't even fathom. Then, just a few moments later, we hear Elsa's voiceover tell us that Spencer never forgot Alexandra. So Spencer is permitted to hold on to his love for a lifetime, but Elizabeth is expected to forget hers overnight. Make it make sense. The greatest insult, however, was Kara's complete disregard for the fact that Elizabeth is pregnant with Jack's child. She never said that this baby would have a home on the ranch. She didn't even acknowledge that this child is a part of the Dutton bloodline. It is baffling to think that a family as obsessed with legacy as the Duttons would so easily cast aside a direct heir. The only plausible explanation is that Sheridan is holding this storyline for a future series. Perhaps the rumored spin-off, The Madison, isn't about an outside family at all. What if it's about Elizabeth's descendants? A branch of the family not carrying the Dutton name, who were forced away from Montana only to be drawn back by matters of inheritance and birthright. As these two branches of the same family finally collide, it would create a sense of anticipation and bittersweet reunion. While I love the idea of this long overdue convergence, I can't help but feel that Elizabeth's character was sacrificed to make it happen. She deserved a much better storyline. I would love to hear what you think about her portrayal, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. And now, this is where the future gets really interesting. According to reports from Variety, 1923 has officially concluded, confirming there will not be a conventional season 3. But don't put your cowboy hat away just yet. The Dutton legacy is far from over. The saga is set to continue with 1944, where Spencer is expected to be a central figure once again. In a development that has already sparked massive fan excitement, actor Brandon Sklenar has publicly stated his interest in reprising the role. This means we are almost certain to see more of the Spencer we have come to know, in all his haunted complexity. With 1944 reportedly already in early production and a premiere being eyed for as early as 2026, The Yellowstone universe is preparing for its next epic installment. Before we ride off into the sunset for today, I just want to take a moment and say, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Your support, your comments, your theories, and your passion are what make this community so incredible. Every like, every share, and every moment you have spent exploring these stories with me has helped build something more than just a fan base. It's a family of Yellowstone diehards who care deeply about these characters and the world they inhabit. So, if you've enjoyed this breakdown and want more weekly updates, behind the scenes analysis, and honest conversations about everything happening in the Yellowstone universe, please make sure to hit that like button, follow, and join the conversation down below. And hey, before you leave, check out the video that's on your screen right now. I promise it is packed with theories, Easter eggs, and plot threads that you definitely do not want to miss. Thanks again for being a part of this amazing journey. Here's to more drama, more Duttons, and more unforgettable moments together.